I'm here with Nicola McCartney, who has curated our Russian and Ukrainian season at Pie and A Pint, and George is a Salinger, literary manager from National Theatre of Scotland, who's also been working on this international season, and indeed lots of our international seasons. Thought it would be quite interesting just to have a kind of overview chat of what the season's been about, how it came about, who the writers are, and what it's been like working on all three plays. Nicola, since you curated the season and you chose the Playwrights, and we'll start with you about the background and how you...
Well, the season was the idea of David McClennan. The idea came about 5 years ago. I have quite long-standing links with Russia, and I still do, and I work a lot with playwrights in new drama there. Yeah. And I was making one of my trips, and David McClennan said, go and see if they'd like to do Pie and A Pint in Moscow. And we almost brought that off in Moscow, and we still might. I think this season has helped a lot in forwarding that possibility, but politics are difficult now. But basically, he asked me to find 3 playwrights, and I chose 3 people who are very well-established writers, who are all extremely different from each other, from Ukraine and 2 from Russia. And the selection we always intended to do, to invite Ukrainian playwrights into this season, and then the hostilities kicked off. So the season was not deliberately constructed after the trouble broke out in Crimea, but it's just been extremely timely in terms of what's going on politically there right now. So we chose Natalia Vorozhbit, who's Ukraine's leading playwright. She's also a screenwriter, and she is currently writing a film about the situation in Donetsk right now. We chose Mikhail Dernenkov, whose play The War Has Not Started Yet is on this week. And he is, for us, the best way that I can really describe him for a Scottish audience is he's kind of Russia's answer to David Gregg. He's got a very similar kind of profile to that writer. He is artistic director of the Lyubomovka Theatre Festival in Moscow, which is the premier festival for new plays. And he's a very experimental writer. And the third is Yuri Klavdiev, who has been named as Russia's most degenerate playwright by the Ministry of Culture, which means that the government consider him to be the playwright most dangerous to the Russian spirit, the Russian national spirit or kind of state of mind, because he writes about things that are forbidden within or taboo within Russian culture. For example, to depict homosexuality in any kind of serious or positive light is against the law in Russia. And he will continue to write plays like that. So I chose 3 very different people, but 3 very well-established writers, and I've known all of them for a long time. I first met the 2 Russian playwrights when I taught them in a workshop when they were both like 23 to 24 years old. So I've known them a really long time, and I've watched them kind of grow up and develop and become these cultural superstars, really.
So cultural superstars as playwrights
in Russia.
What's the status of new writing in Russia then? They're the eminent writers, but there's obviously,
I think it's a very complex political situation in Russia. So you have a regime, in Putin's regime, where there is tolerated opposition. So what Vladimir Putin is very good at is keeping power under a veneer of democracy, where he will allow certain newspapers, certain news outlets and certain theatres to exist to be the voice of opposition, but that's quite controlled and to a certain point. All the playwrights with whom we're working are associated with a theatre called Teatr.Doc, Theatre Doc in Moscow, which is a bastion of political resistance. It particularly opposes all the new censorship laws that have been brought in over the last couple of years in Russia. And they're a voice that really seems to bother the government. So to the extent that the regime had that theatre closed down in an absurd way by asking them 1 year, just after they'd staged readings of transcripts of the Pussy Riot trials, they sent the fire department in to say, please put a fire door here and stop doing controversial things. The following year, after they then staged a festival of banned plays, plays that are banned by the censor in Russia, the fire department came back and said, we're closing you down because that fire door that we told you to put in last year is now in the wrong place. So they evicted them from the building, but the Playwrights got together and they built a new theatre. They basically took over a derelict building and with their bare hands built a new theatre auditorium. So it's very important in Russia. Theatre's really politically charged. It's the only place where you can really, particularly in doc, have free conversation about what's going on within Russian society.
That was something Claudia said when he was here. It's the only place where you can.
And what we've done here, what Play Pie Pint have done, what you've done, is you've kind of raised the status even of these three writers within their own theatre culture, actually, because they're getting a lot of attention because of what we're doing here. There's a lot of conversation on social media at the moment, and also the Ukrainian play. Natalia Vorozhbit's work hasn't been staged in Russia since, and it used to be staged a lot, but it's not been staged since the beginning of hostilities. There's now going to be a production of the play we commissioned in the Miracle Centre, but the government have already said they will close it down because it's by a Ukrainian writer. Mikhail Dernenkov's play, I was told today, will be performed in Theatre.doc. They're going to stage it there, even though it's very controversial. So it's what you're doing here, what Oren Moore, what Play Pie Pint have done, is created a ripple in Moscow, actually, and created a kind of, I suppose, a correspondence, but it's like they feel supported. So I think that this season has a far-reaching impact that we can't even gauge at the moment in terms of what you've done. So.
Is there work, I should maybe ask them that directly, is there work performed a lot out with, what other countries around the world are putting on plays for these writers?
A lot of these three writers have their work produced in Eastern Europe, in Germany, and also in North America. So Claudia and Dernenkov's plays are frequently performed in North America. The RSC produced a season of Russian work that the two plays, one was written by Natalia Vorozhbit, one was written by Dernenkov. That was in 2009. Yeah. So they already have recognition, kind of very much recognition out with Russia, but we haven't recognised them here yet, but we do now. But because of the timing of this season, it's really had quite profound impact. And also, the two Russian writers specifically have said they could not write the plays that they've written for us in Russia. They would never be commissioned to speak as freely as they're able to.
Yeah, fascinating. George, this is the 5th international season we've done in the National Theatre of Scotland, and all of them have worked slightly differently in terms of how we've worked with writers and what curators work with and what stage of career writers have been at. When we did the Chinese season, for instance, it's all kind of emerging writers. How have you found this particular season and working with these three writers?
Well, I mean, it's been a real privilege, actually. It was great Nicola had all those the contacts to kind of work with kind of three really senior, established and kind of brilliant writers. Not that the writers in the other seasons haven't been brilliant, I don't want to cast any kind of aspersions, but yeah, I mean, the first drafts came in and they just felt like little kind of entry points to a kind of another world, really. We were talking downstairs about different type of dramaturgy. They are a different type of play than we would usually write here, but you know, kind of incredibly exciting, actually. And just writers at the top of their game who are doing, you know, have achieved what they want to achieve with their work. So yeah, no, it's been a real privilege.
For audiences at home watching this who might not, can talk a bit about the process and what, you know, from commissioning the plays, what the different kind of stages have been before we get it to the performance that's on stage and different people's involvement.
Well, I guess they've all been quite different in a way, because it usually I work as a dramaturg, just me and that writer, but because there's been quite a buzzing team. Each one's worked in a slightly different way. So we've had two hugely talented translators, Sasha Dugdale and Sasha Smith, who have taken. Sasha Dugdale did Natalia's play, and then Sasha Smith has done Misha's and Yuri's. And they had the first job, you know, they had something written in an entirely different language, which I just can't imagine the challenges of then translating that somehow into something you can understand here. And then we were lucky enough to get an invitation to Oxford University. So we were able to actually, something we wouldn't usually do, is to get a reading of those. It was Nicola, myself, and Davey was there, Davey Anderson. So we were able to kind of have a little, a half day on 2 of the plays. So that was and a reading, yes, that was a kind of great opportunity as well. And then since then it's kind of just been, each adapter has then had their own special relationship with that writer. So Davey has very much built that relationship up with Nisha to kind of work on that play. I know they've sent so many emails about the tiniest little things, they're much bigger points, and likewise with yourself and Natalia and Peter Arnott and Yuri Klavdev. So there's a number of different people, and of course we've got directors that we're bringing in the case of Yuri's play as well.
I think it's been quite useful that we were able to bring Yuri here as well and do a day's development.
That's right,
thing.
yes,
So I
that
think
day as well.
an unusual part of this process with an international season is we've been able to have all 3 commissioned writers come to us, see what Play Pie Pint is, understand that, and we've had a chance to work with them on how that might be
We've
translated.
done that a few times.
Yeah.
It works. That works. That works really well because actually
Yeah.
the context of Play Pine it's quite hard to describe to people that Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Good.